On this episode of Just Informed Talk, the latest new Q posts give us incredible insight into what allegedly may be going on with these wildfires in California, plus a whole lot more you're going to want to stick around to hear. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. I always like to start by saying thank you to all my subscribers. I truly am thankful for each and every one of you who've come and hit that button. If you haven't, come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications to be notified when these videos get posted. Well, here we are today. These are the latest set of Q posts, and we're going to go through them each one by one. If you guys want to get caught up to where we're at in the latest Q posts, you're going to want to go back here to the landing page, watch these last few videos. It's going to give you great insight into all the latest Q posts and what's been going on the Q boards. So today, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to begin, right here. It's Q post 2, 4, 6, 7, and forward. So the first thing is this President Trump tweet, where President Trump tweeted about the California wildfires, where the president says, "There is no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California except that forest management is so poor. Billions of dollars are given each year with so many lives lost, all because of gross mismanagement of the forest. Remedy now or no more Fed payments." Yeah, sounds like President Trump has taken a pretty clear stance on this. Now, the next one here says, is an older Q post from July 30th, 2018, where Q says, "What happens when California is in serious debt and lost priority aid from the federal government due to sanctuary status, illegal, light fires, declare state of emergency and require billions from Fed? Why did POTUS reject in the past? Sick people, the more you know." And it gives several articles here that talk about the wildfires. And the Justice Department is suing California over sanctuary laws. Then Q basically goes into the new post. This is Q posting today, what he wants to respond to all of this with. Q says, "Do you believe in coincidences? How many coincidences before it becomes mathematically impossible? Expand your thinking. Amount of fires in California past 12 months, amount of fires in California past 10 years, date Fed funding cut off from California as a result of violations of sanctuary state city, California budget cuts past 12 months regarding fire and prevention. Reduce, eliminate dry brush cleanup. Reduce, eliminate free line cleanup. Reduce, eliminate fire break installations. Reduce, eliminate chopper flyovers to target high exposure areas. Reduce, eliminate population areas exposure and fire break safety management. Reduce, eliminate use of inmates, correction facilities for highway cleanup and dry brush removal. What is the primary purpose of declaring a state of emergency? What determines the size of the federal payment to a state that has declared a state of emergency? What is the current debt of California? The more you know, Q." So let's go through and try to address some of these questions that are being posed by Q. First of all, you have President Trump here saying that they may actually remove federal funding because they're not managing their forest well. It's just leading to fires. But Q gives us an in-depth explanation of what President Trump was referring to. So when Q asks about coincidences, this is just an ongoing thing, and I've basically given up on coincidences. It seems that for QAnon and everything that we've done here over the last over a year, for it all to be coincidence is mathematically impossible in my opinion. But that being said, it says expand your thinking. And it asks us to look at the amount of fires in California in the past 12 months versus the past 10 years. In order to do that, you just do a simple search online, and you can find these Wikipedia pages that exist. And starting in 2018, you see this starting in 2017 actually, you see this really weird trend. So I'm going to point this out, and we'll just start here, I guess. Okay, so this year apparently, which is not over yet, by the way, there's been 7,500 fires, over 7,500 fires that have covered a total of 1.6 million acres, according to this article here on Wikipedia, at a cost of $2.975 billion in, I guess, damages. Okay, so that's a number. Let's go back. Let's go backwards and see how these numbers, have evolved. So here's 2017, where they had 9,133 fires that scorched over 1.3 million acres at a cost of $18 billion, which, according to this article, was the costliest on record. Right? So, okay, so obviously 2018, there's already been 1.6 million, and now there's 1.3 million. So you see there was that 300,000 acre jump, and the year's not even over yet. But now let's go back to 2016. Oh, well, look at this. In 2016, they had only 600,000 acres burned at a total of 7,300 fires, which I believe is less than how many they've had already this year in 2018. You go back to 2015, and there's 893,000 acres. You go back to 2014, 625,000 acres. You go back to 2012, 600,000 acres. Again, 800 in 2010 or 12. 2011 was 168,000 acres, so almost no fires. Then you go back, it's 100,000 here. You keep going back, it's 400,000. So it does tend to vary, but obviously what you can see here is going all the way back. The last time we had these big fires was 2008, which to me, a lot of people are going to say it's cyclical, it's the weather, it's dry, whatever. Well, that may be true, but look at the total number of fires here. Even when you had maybe a few big fires back in 2008, the total amount of fires was only 4,900. Compare that to today, where we were at the beginning with how many we've had already, like over 7,500, I think, in this year alone. And the year's not even over yet. We still have over a month left. So this is it, guys. I mean, this is what Q wants to point our attention to. You can keep basically going back and see that there were a few more fires if you keep scrolling backwards. But this is definitely something that is interesting to look at. And if you combine those numbers, you can see that in the last 2 years, there's been as many fires as over the last few years, if you combine some of those years leading up to the last 2 years. So, guys, this is incredible. And look at the cost, too. You got to remember the cost in these numbers. So, like, you just keep going backwards, and you can see that this is not historically normal for them. And it's just a matter of fact if you read the data and you look at it, right? So Q wanted us to look at that. All right, so we got that out of the way. Now, it says date Fed funding cut off from California as a result of violation sanctuary city. And then it says California budget cuts past 12 months refire and prevention. Now, this is just referring to the fact that basically, as a part of them losing their federal funding, I guess they thought it would be a good idea to stop, funding fire and prevention or fire prevention. So this is what we're being faced with. And Q's pointing this to us saying, look, they've stopped doing things to prevent fires. Now, why would they do that? Obviously, some people could say very clearly it's because they've lost their funding and they don't have the money to do it. But Q gives us a totally different insinuation from the next couple of questions, where he says, what is the primary purpose of declaring a state of emergency? What determines the size of federal payment to a state that has declared a state of emergency? What is the current debt of California? Well, you're in luck. I have answers to all those questions. Here we go. So first of all, to understand how you get basically money and assistance for the affected disasters, there's several factors that are taken into account that basically decide how much money to be given. So first of all, there's an estimated cost of assistance. There's the effect of localized impacts. There's the insurance coverage in force. There's hazard mitigation, recent multiple disasters, other federal agency assistance, and that's in the case of public assistance programs, right? Now, what does that basically mean? That means that when you look at this, right, and you kind of have to factor in what they're getting, it's based on the size and severity of the fire, which seems very, very reasonable. It seems like exactly what you would think it is. If it's a lot of fires, a lot of damage, a lot of impact, then they're going to get more funding. So that's just the question Q wants us to ask. But what's even more interesting is when you look at the actual Fire Management Assistance Grant Program, what they say here is kind of interesting, that the grant program actually provides a 75% federal cost share, and the state pays the remaining 25% for actual costs. But before a grant can be awarded, a state must demonstrate that total eligible costs for the declared fire meet or exceed either the individual fire cost threshold, which is which is applied to single fires, or the cumulative fire cost threshold, which recognizes numerous smaller fires burning throughout a state. Eligible firefighting costs may include expenses for field camps, equipment use, repair and replacement, tools, materials and supplies, and mobilization and demobilization activities. So interestingly enough, what this is basically saying, the government will come in with about 75% of the aid when it comes to mitigating these fires and helping to alleviate the damage that has been inflicted. Okay, so that's just, we're answering questions here. I'm leaving a lot of this to you guys to put together for yourself, because I'm not going to make any insinuation other than to say this is what Q is saying, right? So it says, what is the current debt of California? Well, California is actually one of the most heavily debt, I think it is the highest debted state in the country, coming in at around, according to Google here, as of 2017, $1.3 trillion. So they don't really have any money left. Or as of 2015, right? So $1.3 trillion in debt, which could be a lot more by now, because this was as of, 3 years ago. They are incredibly highly in debt. And I guess if you were going to connect the dots and say, what is Q trying to tell us? Q is trying to tell us something very interesting here. Q is basically saying, is it possible? He's asking us these questions. Is it possible that because funding was cut from California for its sanctuary status, right? And don't forget what Q told us in these previous posts here, where we look at these like election heat maps. This is a great example of it. And Q wanted us to understand that, if you look at the election heat map here and you compare it to this map that shows the highest, populations of undocumented immigrants, it almost correlates perfectly. As in to say, this is an example of why Democrats have such a pro immigration, or basically it's like pro amnesty and sanctuary and all that stuff policies when it comes to illegal or undocumented immigrants, right? So, and they want to do everything. Go look at California right here. I mean, look at California just as an example. I'm going to show, just look at California. Look at how much blue is right there, and look at the comparison to the voting heat map, right? So, and they've become a sanctuary state basically, which to me is, I don't even know what that means. Does that mean that anybody from anywhere can just walk in like it's a sanctuary state? Yeah, hey, China, Russia, send everyone. Hey, send them from Kazakhstan. Send them from South Africa, send them from India, from, the Philippines, from, Timbuktu, who cares, right? Bring everyone in, because they're a sanctuary for anyone who apparently is not a citizen of this country, right? Which is quite disturbing. But getting back to what Q was saying here, can you imagine, without that federal funding, is it possible that these fires are a convenient solution to circumventing that restriction of federal funds? I'm going to leave that one to you guys, but I'm certainly sure that Q is making that insinuation. So it's up to you to take that and do with it as you may. Now the next one is talking about something we covered in the last video. If you guys want to get caught up, like I said, go back here and watch this video. This is a good one. We talked about Anthony Scaramucci, and there was this play, right? There was a play that was made by bringing him in for 10 days and then having him basically leave after he forced other people out. He forced Sean Spicer out, and he forced Reince Priebus out. All right, so that being said, and also, I didn't mention this before, I don't think, but if you guys scratch your head going, what is QAnon? What is this guy talking about? Come here, watch this video. It gives you all the information you need to basically understand what QAnon the Great Awakening is, to understand how to get involved, where to find the information, how to do the research. All that stuff is in there. So if you guys want, go check that out. All right, so back to this. The Scaramucci play, excuse me. It says, temp hire to remove embedded untrustworthy staffers, Spicer and Priebus. It says, temps can be very dangerous to those who are targeted. Think Whitaker. next week, White House optics must remain stable. It gives this ABC article, which talks about a list of officials who have left the Trump administration, which we'll go through a little bit later. And it says many did not leave by choice. Save face and promote MAGA or be exposed. Less than 10 attacks occur from all directions. Logical thinking, why attack a movement simply by design, asking people to think for themselves. Control equals power. Why are the biggest news companies in the world continuing to attack this movement? Why is the Washington Post leading the attacks? Why do the attacks come in waves, coordinated? You attack those the most who are the biggest threat. Swamp contains red and blue. Q. Wow. I mean, this is crazy. So basically, looking at this, you talk about Spicer, Sean Spicer and Reince Priebus. These are two individuals who obviously, what Q is saying, they were quote-unquote untrustworthy staffers. Who knows what that actually means? I mean, deep state, swamp, whatever you want to call it, right? But it says temps can be very dangerous to those who are targeted. And then it says think Whitaker. So guess what? Matthew Whitaker. Who is that? That is the acting attorney general now that Jeff Sessions has resigned. Well, apparently Q wants us to be aware of that fact for next week when we take into account that maybe, just maybe, other people may be resigning and stepping down and leaving because Whitaker is in power. And that maybe Whitaker is going to be just like Scaramucci and be or recuse himself or resign soon. But we'll have to wait and see how that all folds out. It says White House optics must remain stable, meaning the optics have to look a certain way. You have to have it appear that the White House is not wanting to get rid of certain individuals who are, basically working against the Trump administration's agenda for our country, right? So in order to do that, maybe you bring in an outside force, a temporary hire like, oh, you guessed it, Whitaker, Matthew Whitaker, the acting attorney general, who can shake things up and force people to resign basically by just being there, right? And that to me is incredible. That is what we have to focus on. And it's kind of like, imagine it's, I've never watched the show, but I've heard House of Cards, I guess, is about politics. It's kind of that level where it's, okay, well, we put Whitaker in. If you want Whitaker to leave, you need to have these people resign, save face, and promote President Trump or be exposed. And then Whitaker may step down or recuse himself. So I know this might be disappointing to a lot of you out there, but the reality is it's kind of like the give and take of politics. There is, if President Trump just did all of this stuff unilaterally, it would be an authoritarian regime. So I know a lot of you get frustrated at the progress and how things are done and all that stuff. But guys, do you really want an authoritarian regime in the White House? I'd much rather have somebody who's politically savvy and an intelligent person who can actually navigate these things while, remaining stable. Because we don't want to show instability. We want to show stability. That's the way I read it. So whatever. You guys can let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Now, when it says here less than 10, I think that's talking about Q. Because that's a way that Q has referred to himself or themselves, like the QAnon collective, the people who are basically around President Trump and getting this information out to the public, it would seem. But it's saying attacks occur from all directions. Logical thinking. Why attack a movement simply by design, asking people to think for themselves? Now, this is so incredible. And I get so frustrated because, guys, believe you me, for all you out there listening, I deal with this stuff. I'm dealing with people right now, stuff I can't even talk about. Right? Where people are, they get lawyers and they say, I won't even talk to this person or be in the same room with them. And it is crazy because good people who are just trying to get the truth out there end up, being put as second-class citizens or having their voices shut down or having their ability to speak removed. And it's happening more regularly every single day. So we have to keep fighting this. But I'm telling you right now, they do not like whatever QAnon is. They don't like it. They despise it. They fear it. And they want to destroy it. That's what I think. And when I say they, obviously I'm referring to the mainstream media and the powers that control those apparatuses. So it says control equals power. And this is something we've talked about ad nauseum here on this channel. Control equals power. information equals control. You control the information, you have the power. They don't care about money anymore. Do you think YouTube cares that they've demonetized and kicked all these people off their platform because of the money? They don't. They could give two, whatever, flips less about the money. They don't care about the money. Controlling information, controlling knowledge, that's the true power that they have. And they do it in this like very subtle, almost undetectable way, unless you're actually in there, in the actual, whatever you want to call it, the metaphorical foxhole fighting to get truth out, your truth. Everyone has a right to speak their truth, but it's kind of like they don't care. They'll demonetize, they'll deplatform, they'll do whatever they have to do, right? Delist. There's many different ways they do it, but they'll do whatever they have to do to shut down the opinions and voices of those who offer a dissenting view. And that's what we're in right now. So it says, why are the biggest news companies in the world continuing to attack this movement? That's a great question. As I said, it's because they fear individuals getting access to the narrative, that's not presented by them. Any narrative, it doesn't matter. It could be some guy, but they don't believe that you're able to differentiate between somebody who is giving you the right information and the wrong information. But it goes even deeper than that. They don't care if you can or not. They want to tell you what you can and can't hear, right? It says, why is the Washington Post leading the attacks? Well, look at the history of the Washington Post. We all know it has deep connections to many different ABC organizations, including the CIA, and that's obvious if you look at the history of it. It says, why the attacks come in waves? I think it's all, and it says coordinated. I think it's because of those 4 a.m. talking points that go out to their journalists who, and I used air quotes, you guys couldn't see that, but they're journalists who say, Q is deranged, Pizzagate on bath salts, so they're all crazy and mean and angry and violent, and it's just not true. It's so untrue. We are patriots. We love our country. We want the best for our country. They come after us. I've had people now. I'm not even going to get into it. It's not important, but let's just say this. People who spread this information are very much targeted for this kind of, accusatory rhetoric that never seems to cease. Well, with that being said, it says you attack those the most who are the biggest threat. Obviously, the information we're getting is a threat to their control over the narrative. It says swamp contains red and blue, and I've said this a million times, guys. It's not just the liberals. It's not just the Democrats. It's the rhinos. It's the fake conservatives. Guys, it's on both sides. It's infiltrated every aspect of our government. So I'll leave that there. So the next one says, dark to light. Florida and Arizona attempt to steal the elections. Do not look here. California shooting and fires, same locations. Look here next week. Q. Guys, I don't know what Q's giving us info on, and I hope and pray it's not what I think it is, but I'll tell you this right now. If this is all just one big distraction or if it's let's say hypothetically, if it was one big ploy to get federal funding that they had been, or that had been taken, while at the same time it's a convenient distraction to look away from what's going on in Florida, then that's just the lowest and the sickest of the sick. And if you guys don't know, you gotta look at what's going on with these crazy, crazy stories that are coming out of Florida and Arizona when it comes to these different political races. First of all, you have Ron DeSantis, who's basically his lead was cut down to nothing after Broward County. Basically, and I'm not making this up, they basically broke the law, or did break the law, according to lawsuits that they lost, and they've continued to do it. Right? And they don't care. They don't want, they're just, votes are just magically appearing out of nowhere. And they're like, oh, hey, look, a truckload of votes, a bag of votes here, a bag of votes there. Hey, we misplaced them. Sorry. They just all happen to be like 90, a majority of them are like huge, like all Democrat. But it's funny because a lot of the political analysts have studied this and said, well, if you look at even if you take into account that Broward County is like 2-1 Democrat, it's kind of crazy to think that like this many votes are going to Democrats. So I don't know. That's something you need to look at. Same thing with Arizona with the race between McSally and I think it's McSally and Kristen Sinema. And this is not, it's DeSantis going up against Gillum, and in Florida, it's Rick Scott going up against Bill Nelson. So there's a lot going on there, which is definitely just looks so shady. And guys, like I said before, I know South Florida. I spent a lot of time down there. I know Broward County very well. And I can tell you right now, this does not surprise me one bit. Not at all. I know what it's like there, and I can tell you right now, doesn't surprise me one bit. Whatever's going to happen next week, we're going to have to keep an eye out. So that's all I'll say about that. And the next one here says, when did White House leaks cease? Who was removed, sealed to unsealed Q? Well, basically what I'm thinking on this one is that I'm not sure exactly who. The first thing that comes to mind is Omarosa when she was removed. That's when the leaks stopped. It's very possible that she was the one letting that information out in some like secret resistance to Trump. Other people have said that it's also possible that she was allowed to kind of leave and do that, but I don't know. I don't believe that. And we'll have to wait and see and if you guys know who this is referring to, let me know down in the comments because I'm not sure. But I can say sealed to unsealed. That kind of points me back to Jeff Sessions being removed. But I'm pretty sure the leaks stopped a little bit before his resignation, which was just recently. If you guys have any insights, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Now the next one here is pretty interesting. It's this list. Now this list is talking about Broward County. And like I said, I know Broward County. And this doesn't surprise me at all. Right, but it gives this list of people, Nick Cruz, Cesar Sayoc, Mohammed Atta. If you guys don't recognize these names, I'm going to give you a hint. These are people that, at the top here, from here up, have all been involved in criminal activities, whether it's terrorist plots, it's mass shootings, or basically just really bad criminals who have been brought up on charges and indicted. And then it also gives here officials and agents of note, talking about Scott Israel and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And you know this guy. I'm not even going to say his name because YouTube might throw me off the planet if I say it rhymes with bog, I guess. You know him. Anyway, it says expand further. This says a Tampa Bay news article, which actually talks about prominent terror cases with ties to Florida. And it goes through all these different people. People who were involved in the 9/11 hijacking of planes. People who were involved with basically being complicit in murder. People who were involved in trying to create a dirty bomb. People who were involved in basically terrorist activities. You have others who tried to help Al-Qaeda fighters. You have basically people who were put into these or had these plots to commit acts of terror. Basically, the list just goes on and on and on. And the question is, how are these people all related? Well, it seems like they're all based out of Florida. So what are we thinking when it comes to Florida? Q wants us to expand further and understand that it's not just Broward County. It seems to be the whole state. And that's quite unfortunate. But I know that state very well. And I can tell you right now that it is definitely one of those places where people just don't seem to... Well, I'm not going to make some broad generalization because I'm not into that. But I'll say this. These things are fact, what Q's pointing us to. These incidences where individuals have committed crimes, have been accused, indicted, and prosecuted. That, to me, is something we need to look at and expand further our thinking around it. What is the connection there? What is the nexus? What is the what is the common theme there? We'll have to keep looking at that, but it basically is that they're all in Florida, and they're all, prominent cases of acts of terror and acts of violence. So that's definitely, there's a correlative fact there, a correlative factor that we have to look at. And, look, this is what Q's given us, so I'm just saying it. And, the funny thing is that everybody keeps knocking all this information and Q and all that. When it does come out one day, in my humble opinion, that Q is President Trump, military intelligence was involved, this was the biggest operation, they were trying to get information out, trying to circumvent the media who wouldn't fairly report the news and were trying to undermine our country and our sovereignty, that is going to be the day where we all look back and say, wow, can you believe this information that we were being given? So that's the way I look at it. Now the next one here says, basically, it gives us this scribed document, which is really crazy. So this is from a woman who worked, right, in Broward County at the Supervisor of Elections office. And her name's Chelsea Marie Smith. And you guys, I'll leave a link to this in the description. You guys have to read this story. But basically what she says is that she was working in the Supervisor's Office of Elections, the Supervisor of Elections officer, I should say. And basically she was asked to deliver a stack of blank ballots to a room in the back that was locked. And upon doing so the first time, she didn't notice anything because she wasn't allowed in. But when she went back a second time and she went in, she saw, I believe she says, 4 Supervisor of Elections employees sitting at a table filling in ballots by the stack load. I mean, we're talking about stacks of blank ballots being filled in by election employees, campaign or election employees, right? Or election officials, I should say. Now, why is that bad? Well, if you know anything about voting, you know that it's one vote for one person. It's not, I work at the elections office, therefore you give me a stack of ballots and I'll fill them out and then I'll just throw them in this box here and that I'll get like 500 votes and you get 1 vote. But that's what she said. This is her sworn testimony. So I believe this was an affidavit. Yeah. She basically gave this sworn account of what happened, saying that she was basically fired the day after she realized what was going on. She went into this room. She saw them basically filling in blank ballots, and she basically was fired the next day. So she went and she told her story. She gave a sworn affidavit. Right here, you can read through it if you want to get all the exact details of what she says. But Q says, we knew then, we know now, this time we have government control, boomerang suicide Q. So obviously that's pretty simple. They knew this was going on, and when I say they, you think of President Trump, but more overly, it's back then it would have been like the NSA, General Flynn, Admiral Rogers, others involved who are basically now have transitioned into the Q thing, that they knew then, they know now, and that this time President Trump is in office, and they have control to do something. And the boomerang suicide, that's just a reference, it's like a metaphorical reference to like, you throw a boomerang and it comes back, and if you're not ready for it to come back, it can hurt you and possibly take your life. So it's a metaphor for them basically exposing themselves, right? Okay, so the next one, I'm going to try to speed this up. I know we've been going for a while. Is this tweet, and it's really an impressive tweet here. It's, it's this one right here of this gentleman with his 2 young daughters, and it says, who said that real Donald Trump supporters are all stupid and uneducated? We are from every walk of life. Semper Fi Marines. Happy birthday, 243rd. And I couldn't agree more. Happy Veterans Day. Happy birthday for the Marines. Happy, congratulations. God bless. We're all praying for you. And Q says it better than I could actually right there. Q says, we thank you for your service, Patriot. May God watch over you and your family for all eternity. Hashtag Semper Fi Q. And yeah, I completely echo those sentiments, and I pray for every man and woman in the armed services and their families and everyone out there, everyone in the world. I want God's love to come into everyone's heart. I don't want it to just be for some. So that is that. Now the next one's pretty funny, actually. It's this AP Twitter account, and it says, "Sheik no more, American Patriots United, fight, 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 Q." And I don't know if this is like a joke or if somebody hacked it, but this is the real... This is the actual Twitter status for the Associated Press, or their actually their background photo here. It literally is a guy with a whole thing of sheep and walking up a street, it looks like. So let me ask you this. Is the AP basically just saying you are the sheep and they are this guy and they are hurting you? Is that what this is? Or did somebody like hack into there and put this up? I'm sure it would have been pulled by now if they had. But it's like they literally, see, they don't even care. They're like, hey, this is so accurate. Look, we're leading sheep. I don't even know what to say to that. Like, I thought that was a good idea, I guess. So good for them. Anyway, it gave us a really good chance for this quippy little response. Now the next one here basically says, will election fraud be revealed soon? And then Q said, this is all the way from April 19th, guys. April 19th. Months and months ago. Q says, yes, midterms are safe. Watch California. Q says, news unlocks Q. And this is exactly what we talked about at the beginning of this episode. Talking about California and these wildfires. And then, obviously, you had the attack in Southern California there. This is the best example I can probably give of future-proofing past. Look, guys, you can read this a million different ways, and a lot of people do. A lot of people don't believe that any of this has any correlation. But I can tell you that having covered this diligently for the past year, this is the type of thing Q does. They have an idea of what's going on behind the scenes. And they have an idea of what kind of plans and events may be taking place in the future. Sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't. That's the nature of Q. If they told you everything that was going to happen, the news would have to cover it. And they would have to basically, it would basically be exposed that this is real, or that, and then it may be terminated, and they would just say, oh, plausible deniability, nothing happened. But anyway, that's beside the point. What is the point is Q saying news unlocks Q. That is saying that this was Q trying to give us a message that the midterms in California are related, and we're seeing this definite craziness that's happening there. So, yeah, there you guys go. Now, the next one here is, this one's pretty interesting, right? So it talks about the Hussein cabinet staff. This is an old post from January 19th of 2018, where it talks about all these different members of the cabinet and Hussein's staff who were using private email addresses. And then it says, did Hussein use a private email address? And this is what we talked about with Google. And it says, why was Eric Schmidt in North Korea? Why was Eric Schmidt in North Korea? What private network did he set up in North Korea? And Eric Schmidt is the former head of Google. Right? It says, who else was in North Korea during this time? What private email addresses did Hussein use while in office? Why would North Korea allow access to Eric Schmidt? Nothing is ever truly erased, deleted. These people are stupid, right? This is talking about something incredible. This is basically Q telling us, hey, if you look at this, the Obama staff, the Obama cabinet, were heavily involved in setting up these private networks through North Korea where they could basically have this secret messaging service. And this goes all the way back to Dead Drop Gmail. I'm not going to go through all that because you guys mostly know about it. But basically, I'll just give you the quick rundown of it. It's just Q has insinuated that major top officials were communicating with each other secretly using Gmail as like a sort of dead drop box. As in, instead of sending emails over the internet, what they would do is they would create a Gmail account, they would go in, they would type up a draft, an email draft, then that draft would save, they would share the login credentials with the person they're trying to send the message to. That person would go in, read the draft, then leave their own draft, thereby creating some sort of like dead drop communication system through Gmail. And then Q gave us another one on August 15th where he says, text, emails, drafts, and that's Gmail, ham comms, which is crazy, PlayStation, Xbox chat logs. It says James Comey, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Loretta Lynch, Andrew McCabe, Nellie Orr, and Sally Yates. Bonus round, Q. And then Q gives us this Dan Bongino status, right? And you guys know and love Dan Bongino, I'm sure, as I do. The guy's smart, clever, patriot, good guy. He says, well, isn't this interesting? Comey had sensitive FBI emails on his private Gmail account. And if you go to Bongino.com, where this article was posted, this talks incredibly about the fact that Comey had sensitive FBI emails on his own private Gmail account. Gmail account, guys. Oh, man, wow. So, I don't know what else you can say. This is so sick. I just can't believe that they have these ads on here. I think they do that on purpose because it's Bongino. They probably put that on there just to... I don't know. Anyway, it says at least 7 messages on former FBI Director James Comey's private Gmail account were so sensitive that the Department of Justice declined to release them. The New York Post exclusively obtained 156 of 1,200 pages of messages in which the former FBI Director and his Chief of Staff, James Rubicki, discussed government business. DOJ refused to hand over 7 of the messages because they disclosed techniques and procedures for law enforcement investigations or prosecutions. Another 363 pages were withheld because they contained privileged FBI communications or out of a personal privacy concerns. Guys, and this is from 2013, 2017. Another example of news unlocking, what Q's been telling us. Right? Q says, dig deeper. Reread the drops regarding Gmail and Xbox PlayStation comms. It says there's a reason why directly after the drop, Microsoft shut down their entire network to erase collected and stored data. Sometimes people need to see the future in order to save the past. Right? So look at this. This was crazy. I can't find the exact article, but I remember covering this story very clearly. And it basically was that the whole entire Xbox Live platform crashed right after this drop happened, nationwide. I think it was internationally. And Q basically told us, look, they did that so they could go in and erase all of the chat logs that would have exposed these people. Could you imagine? And this is just, I have this picture in my head of John Brennan sitting in his office, right, with his little PlayStation or his Xbox controller, with his little headphone on, with his little microphone going, you guys, we gotta set this up to get President Trump, or candidate Trump. We need to go spy on him, guys. Sorry, that's my best John Brennan voice there. But no, seriously, look, that is what Q's basically telling us. So that they and he's on there with James Comey, and Comey's like, yes sir, I'll go ahead and I'll shut down the Hillary investigation. I'm sorry, sir. And Loretta Lynch chimes, oh, you should do what I say. I don't know. That sounded more like Bill Clinton. Anyway, you guys got all my impressions tonight, so you're lucky. That's a rare thing. And now Q says sometimes people need to see the future in order to save the past. I think that's a quote from something, but I don't know what it's from. But regardless, it's very true. This may be the future of what we're going to see and hear, is that, you see the future in this whole story come out about James Comey and his Gmails. He's using them to give private, sensitive, classified information, it would seem. At least sensitive, it seems. I don't know. That's where we're at, guys. We need to work to save the past, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, it's all there. If you guys want to read it, I'm going to go ahead and I'll throw links to all the stuff I said. I would link down in the bottom if you guys want to help out the channel. There's a few ways before you go, so stick around. You can come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you get notified. And you can subscribe, and it helps the channel. And thank you. Also, you can watch these videos. Watch them and share them on your social media. Another great way is to comment. Leave your thoughts, theories, and insights down in the comments. And don't forget to smash the like button. That helps out a lot as well, because that makes the videos go to a bigger audience, even though it seems that there's some sort of inside baseball and behind the scenes at YouTube that I don't know about that keeps certain videos from reaching a broader audience. But that's all speculation. for now. And yeah, so definitely that helps out the channel when you guys do all of those things. A few other ways you can help out the channel, which are pretty simple. One is to come over here to Just Informed Talk on Twitter. And you guys just come here and go to @Justin_Form. That's what you search. It'll bring you here to Just Informed Talk, the Twitter page. And yeah, it's a pretty cool way. You can probably just search Just Informed Talk as well, and it'll bring you here. And give me a follow. Check out my cool tweets. You get all my cool videos, get all that stuff. Definitely helps out the channel, and I appreciate it. Another great way to help the channel is financially. And I only say this because demonetization is real. I do this 24/7, 365. This is my career. This is what I've devoted basically myself to, is to covering the information the mainstream media news won't cover, and bringing you a balanced my truth as I see it. So basically, or do my best to bring you the objective truth. I say, and then I give you my opinion along the way. That's a better way to phrase it. But anyway, if you want to support this cause and this channel, you can come here and go to Patreon, patreon.com, search Just Informed Talk, click this button to become a patron. It's a monthly donation. For as little as $1, you can help this channel out, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Another way to help out the channel is to come over here. If you're not interested in the whole monthly thing, I totally understand. Go over here to gofundme.com/just-informed. Links will be in the description. Thank you so much for your donations. You can make a one-time donation here, and you can make it anonymously if you're interested in doing that. So thank you so much to everybody who has come here and helped out the channel. I really appreciate that. So before we go, we have one more thing to talk about, and it's the most important thing, and it's God's grace and how it is in fact greater. And for that, I'm going to go ahead and read this verse to you guys, and it's out of Romans. It's chapter 8, verse 31 through 39, talking about the believer's triumph, our triumph with God, okay? It says, "What then are we to say about these things? If God is for us, who is against us? He did not even spare his own son, but offered him up for us all. How will he not also with him grant us everything? Who can bring an accusation against God's elect? God is the one who justifies. Who is the one who condemns? Christ Jesus is the one who died. But even more, he has been raised. He also is at the right hand of God and intercedes for us. Who can separate us from the love of Christ? Can affliction or anguish or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? As it is written, because of you we are being put to death all day long. We are counted as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all these things we are more than victorious through him who loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing will have the power to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." Amen. And I believe that 100%. Our triumph is in our eternal faith to our Lord and Savior. And to God the Father and Christ the Son and the Holy Spirit. Our faith is what delivers us. And no matter what happens here on this earth, that can never change. If we make it so in our hearts, then no matter what happens here in this world, we will be saved. We will be loved by God. We will be granted our eternal salvation in God. And that's all you're asked to do is believe. That's it. To have faith and to be a good person, to be righteous. Now, we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes along the way. But I can just say this, guys. Mistakes don't make us. Faith is what will save us. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I want to say thank you for watching this episode. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That's it for me. My name is Craig. This has been Just Informed Talk. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.